Do you know that this MPPT solar charge controller has the capacity to extend your battery life? Stick around and you're going to find out more that this MPPT solar charge controller can do. I've already done 2 videos in this series, one for the inverter that goes with this system and the 5 kWh lithium iron phosphate battery. Now, you want to go back to those videos and watch them so that you'll be able to catch up on this one, because there's some things that are kind of falling up into this video. I'm going to be talking about this MPPT solar charge controller as it relates to this 5 kWh lithium iron phosphate battery, because I've already done a review on this MPPT solar charge controller, and I'm going to leave the link in the description below, and perhaps I'm going to leave it on the end screen as well. Now, the first thing about charge controllers that you need to know is that they come in different voltages. Sometimes, maybe on rare occasions, you just get the one that has 12 volts, but I don't think I've seen that one before. Most of them are usually 1224 or 122448 volts. So most of the ones that I know, that's the voltage that they come with. So you can let me know in the comment section if you've seen the one of just 12 volts. I don't think I have seen. They are always 1224 minimum. Now, this battery and this inverter, which I've talked about already, they are both 24 volts. So what that means is that you need a charge controller that has 24 volts function to be able to work with them. So that's why you see 12, 24, 48 on the charge controller. It is very important. Now, the fact that this charge controller is not working at 48 volts means that it is limited to half the capacity. I don't think I'll have time to explain that in this video, but just to give you an idea, if it is working on 12 volts, the power that is going to be able to pack will be dependent on the current. Let's say, for instance, the maximum current is 120, as in it's in this case now. So at 12 volts, it can operate at 120 amps. At 24 volts, it can operate at 120 amps. So that is double the power for the 12 volts. And when you now climb to 48 volts, it will now work double the power of the 24 volts, which you can see on the body of the inverter. It is stated there. So the maximum power that this charge controller can deliver is 6,600 watts. That's for a 48 volt system. For a 24 volt system, which we are talking about now, it can only deliver 3,300 watts. And I hope that is clear. Now, from my experiences with solar panels, which I'm going to be sharing shortly, I have not gotten more than 82% of the solar panel capacity. Let's just say 85. So just leaving that gap for the maximum capacity that you can get, let's just say 90. I don't think I have ever, and I don't think I'm ever going to see 90% from a solar panel in this part. I don't know. So what I'm saying that is, the amount of 300 watt solar panel we can put for this 24 volt system is supposed to be 11 times. That's 11 times 300. That puts it at 3,300 watts. That's the maximum capacity for this charge controller. But because I know that my solar panels have not touched 90% of their capacity, I can take a chance of adding one more solar panel. When you get 90% of 3,600 watt array, then you're going to arrive at somewhere around 3,250 watts. I say this because of the confidence I have in the fact that my solar panels don't reach that 90%. I do not necessarily recommend it for anyone out there. So you want to be sure of what you are doing. So stick with what the manufacturer says, and at the end of the day, if there's any warranty issues, you'll be able to fight your case. So that's it on that one. Now, why is my charge controller the biggest size? Because this is actually the biggest size I can get from this make of MPPT solar charge controller, 120 amps. The very fact that I'm not connected to the grid, or I'm not getting grid power, means that all the power that I'm getting, I have to depend on my solar panels. So what happens is that even though I cannot get maybe that 12 solar panels that I mentioned earlier, I could start with 6 solar panels, and down the line, if I want to increase the solar panels that I need, I can now add another 6 to it. So there will be no need for me to go and get another charge controller. So that's why I had to go for this big MPPT charge controller. Now, for someone that's staying in a place where there's grid power, because most people in my part of the world, they get grid power anywhere from 0 to 18 hours, just on the rough estimate. So for me, I get somewhere around 10 to 30 minutes on a daily basis. That's on the average. We can go a whole week and there's no grid power. So that means, in a way, I would say I'm totally off the grid, because that is not the kind of power you want to depend on. So for people that have up to maybe like 6, 12, even 18 hours power supply on a daily basis, their dependency on solar panel will be minimal. So even when I was staying in a place where we were getting somewhere around that 12 hours on a daily basis, I wasn't depending on my solar panels. My solar panel was just there to, help my batteries get charged on some occasions when the grid power is down and everything. So that way, I wasn't really depending on my solar panel. So the reason why I'm emphasizing this is that don't say because someone is using a particular amount of solar panels, you want to use the same amount of solar panel. The amount of solar panels you are going to be using is going to be dependent on whether you are getting power to charge your battery from other sources or not. So very important. One beautiful thing about this MPPT solar charge controller is that you can regulate the charging current that it is using to charge your battery. That means you can set the maximum charging current. That way, assuming my 5 kilowatts battery cannot hold that 120 amps charge, you can set it at the appropriate charge. But I know that this battery can hold 120 amps without any problems, so that means I don't have to worry about that. Talking about extending your battery life with this MPPT solar charge controller, it has an equalization function. Unfortunately, that is not meant for your lithium iron phosphate battery. It is meant for your lead acid battery and other batteries. Now, what happens to your batteries when they are getting older or when they are in use is that sulfur gets deposited on the plate. We call it sulfation. So at the end of the day, you need to desulfate it so that we have a longer life, because if sulfur is being deposited there, it will not be able to use the full capacity of its power, and from there will be what we call degradation. From there, your battery now eventually dies. So when you set it on that equalization mode, which is from the charge, I'm talking about the charge controller now, at the end of the day, what it does is that it takes the charging current a bit further, and more importantly, the voltage, it takes it higher than the normal voltage for a period of time. So what happens is that when it maintains it for some period of time, it kind of removes some of the sulfur, desulfation, remove the sulfur from those plates. At the end of the day, the batteries are now able to perform better. Of course, we know that it cannot keep removing all the sulfur and everything, but at least it's going to do a good work in a way that your battery that is supposed to last maybe about 3-4 years, that's your lead acid battery particularly, it is now going to last you for maybe a year longer, 6 months, or sometimes 2 years, depending on how effective that function is. So that's how this charge controller helps to extend your battery life. This 5 kilowatt lithium iron phosphate battery has a switch that turns it on or off. So because you connect your charge controller to this battery, it is important that your charge controller has a disconnect between your solar panels and your MPPT charge controller. And here's why. Anytime your charge controller is connected to your solar panels, it's important for it to be connected to your battery first. Anything that disconnects it from your battery, that means you are putting your charge controller at risk. As a rule of thumb, anytime you want to turn your battery off, if there's any reason to, you have to turn off the breaker so that you cut off the power that is coming from your solar panels first before you can turn off your battery. Before you turn on the breaker again that puts solar charge into your charge controller, before it gets to the battery, you have to put on your battery first before you now turn on the breaker. So this can be sometimes confusing, but that's how it works, because you cannot only connect your panels to your charge controller without it being fed into your battery. So it's important to know that. So that way, even if you don't use breaker in any other part of this connection, you have to establish a breaker or a disconnect switch. That way you don't risk damaging your charge controller. Of course, you can see the maximum PV voltage on the body of the inverter right now. So you cannot go past 170 volts. So that means if you connect 3 solar panels or maybe 4 solar panels and the voltage exceeds 170, it is not going to work. So you have to make sure any amount of solar panels you are connecting, it does not go beyond 170 volts. So it's called the maximum open voltage for your MPPT solar charge controller. And of course, you can also see that it has a minimum voltage you can feed for your 12 volts, 24 volts, and your 48 volts. I have been deliberate not to talk about the solar panels we are going to be needing to charge this system. It's a topic on its own because somebody that is staying off grid, the needs are going to be different. Someone that is connected to the grid, the needs are going to be different. So these are things I'm going to be touching on the next video. So stick around so that at the end of the day, you will find out exactly how many solar panels we need to charge these under different circumstances. Now remember, there's rainy season and there's hot season in my part of the world, and also you may want to power your big gadgets like your pumping machine, your pressing iron and everything. So in that next video, I'm going to be talking on how we can manage this inverter so that we can do practically everything we want to do. But you have to make sure you have the right amount of solar panels, and of course you are going to choose the right timing to get the job done. So looking forward to seeing you on the next video, and don't forget to check out the review that I did for this charge controller. So I'm going to leave the link in the description below like I said earlier, and of course I'm going to leave the link as well for the previous videos that I have done in this series. So see you guys and catch you on the next one.